Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching in the world. My name is Sean Driver, and this is the Red Horde. This video, I'm going to talk about something that I don't think is a difficult subject for North American fans to understand, but it keeps coming up on Twitter, and that is promotion and relegation. So maybe something not new for the Wrexham fans who are obviously well versed in promotion and relegation, but I hope I can add some tidbits and some North American comparisons that make it interesting. Stay tuned as we get into it, and welcome to the Red Horde. The subject keeps coming up, and it's even been contributed to by Rob and Ryan when they talked about the nuances and the craziness of promotion and relegation. They've done it on late night talk show hosts in North America, and I agree it tells good stories, but it's not a new concept, nor is it an entirely difficult concept to understand. For hockey fans, that is ice hockey, and I'm going to call it hockey. You can get me to call soccer football, but I am not going to call hockey ice hockey. I can't do that. I'll have to give up my passport. But for hockey fans, international competitions through the IIHF, which is the FIFA comparison to hockey, use promotion and relegation. They do that for all of their championships, World Junior, World Hockey Championships. In 2010, the Americans got well versed in it because they ended up actually playing in the relegation round, which risked removing them from the top division and into Division 1A, where they would have played the hockey powerhouses of Japan, South Korea, Spain, and Hungary. They managed to survive. 10-0 win over Kazakhstan helped in that regard. But the idea of good teams moving up and bad teams moving down, not a difficult concept to understand. The challenge did occur, however, as I started to go through the structure of the leagues, started to look at North American comparisons and realized that the sports governance models, as between North America and Australia and New Zealand, as well as with football teams and football leagues in England and otherwise elsewhere in Europe, are very different. And so it leads to strict comparison difficulties. You've got difference in franchise rules. You've got litigation that's occurring in the United States related to antitrust rules. You've got the economics and the club value of things. You've got a difference in academy systems. All of those are things that I find interesting topics to review. I plan to go through them over time, but not for this video. I'm going to keep it simple. This is just really jumping into the history of promotion and relegation in England, a brief chat of alternative models. I'll give some base level comparison to North America, but I'm going to put all of that economics, litigation, value stuff, set it aside, and just get into the nitty gritty. So, a little background as to how we ended up with promotion and relegation in England. So English Football League began in 1888. There's 12 teams. The bottom four were required to go through a process called re-election. Essentially, you finish near the bottom four and the other teams get to decide, are we going to keep you in the league or are we going to bring somebody else in? They had to sit for re-election, and usually the teams were re-elected. 2 years later, 1889, 1890. That was the first season. Stoke City was not re-elected. They were voted out. They joined a rival league, the Alliance League, and another team replaced them. So fast forward another 2 years, you get to 1892. And what happens then? The rival league, the Alliance League, and the EFL, they merge and they create two divisions. Some of the teams from the Alliance League make it into the first division. Most of them end up in the second division, and end up coming up with a system so that the Alliance teams could have the opportunity to move up and replace those teams that had traditionally been in the EFL. They came up with a test match system, essentially a hybrid between the re-election system and the promotion relegation system. The top four teams in the second division play the top four teams in the first division, and out of those winners, those teams will then stand for election to be moved up into the top division. That system worked until 1897, 1898, when the most boring football match ever played occurred. That being a match between Stoke City and Burnley. They became, I guess, the fathers of promotion and relegation, because on the last day they determined that they just needed a draw in order to ensure their place, and so they did so. There were 0 shots on goal during that game, and not impressed, the system was changed immediately the following year to promotion and relegation 2 teams up, 2 teams down in between the first and second division. And then at the bottom of the second division, they maintained that re-election process. That system of 2 teams up, 2 teams down between those 2 divisions occurred until 1920-21, when the third division was created. And then you had promotion and relegation occurring between them. And then finally, the following year, 1921 to 1922, a 4th division is created. But this time, a little bit different, split by geography, such that there was a 3rd division north and a 3rd division south. Re-election out of the EFL for the bottom 2 teams in those 2 3rd divisions, with promotion happening from those 2 3rd divisions up into the 2nd division and as between the 1st and 2nd division. Followed with those 4 divisions, the 2 3rd divisions, until 1958-59, when the 2 3rd divisions were amalgamated. They took the top 12 teams in the North and South 3rd divisions and made them the 3rd division, and took the bottom 12 teams in the 3rd and 4th South divisions and made them the 4th division. Maintain the same process though. Teams going up, teams going down. In 1979, you have a new league created, a new tier, that being the Alliance Premier League, the Conference, the National League. Let's call it the 5th tier, the one familiar to Wrexham for far too long. That league was created in 1979, but did not have promotion, wasn't able to do so for some period of time. 1986-87, the National League, the Conference, enters into play. 1 team coming up, but here they had to have requisite stadium capacity to maintain their rights. So you had situations where champions of the National League, of the Conference, had the right, the opportunity to advance into the 4th division, up into the EFL, and they were denied because they didn't have the capacity. 2000-2003, you've got another change. 2 teams are promoted. And that's basically the champion and the playoff winner. We're familiar with that system. We just saw it go through with Wrexham, both in its playoff losses, the one to Grimsby, as well as the championship last year in Notts County, going through the playoff system. So familiar with that. So now let's go back to the chart, and you can see as you go through between Tier 1 and Tier 2, you see 3 down, 3 up, and it says 2 auto, 1 playoff. And between Championship and League 1, it says the same thing. 3 go down, 3 go up, 2 auto, 1 playoff. Just to slow down, take that back a little bit. What does it mean? Well, the bottom 3 teams in both the Premier League and the Championship, they're going to slide down to the lower tier. So if you're in positions 18, 19, 20 in the Premier League, you're going down into the Championship the following year. If you're in positions 22, 23, 24 in the Championship, you're getting relegated down into League 1. Not straightforward there. No playoff, no chance to save yourself. You finish in the bottom 3, you're done. Moving up, a little bit of a difference from the Championship and from League 1 into the Championship, and from the Championship into the Premier League, you're looking at the same process where the first 2 teams, the champion and the team that gets second, automatically promoted. Congratulations, you're moving on up. Things are getting better for you. For the third team, there's a playoff series, and that involves 2 different sets of games. The 3rd seed playing the 6th seed, and the 4th seed playing the 5th seed. Those are conducted in what we would call in North America a 2-game total point series, or a home-and-home series, where they play aggregate goals, end up winning out, penalties if it's necessary, and the winner of those, call them the semifinals, advanced to the final, played 1 game, neutral territory, Wembley. We've seen the madness there, whether you're watching Sheffield Wednesday, Luton Town. We've seen how that process has worked recently. Between League 1 and League 2, there's another change, and I've tried to find the history of it, and the best explanation I can find is there's no reason for it and nobody knows. I don't know why they've decided to increase it from 3 down to 4 down. It seems potentially fair for the same reason why I think that League 2 and the National League should be moving up to 3, and that's to move the teams that are at the bottom of the league and warrant the change, and bring up those from the lower leagues that have demonstrated a capacity to compete. Don't hold back the juggernauts, I suppose, is the message, and don't slow down the fall from those that are free falling. The only change here to the system that is now that because you have 4 automatically going down, you have 3 automatically going up and 1 through the playoff. And so instead of having 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5, now you have the 4th place team playing the 7th best team, the 5th seed playing the 6th seed. Again, 2-game total point home and home series with the winners of those aggregate competitions playing in the finals in Wembley. It doesn't have to be this way as far as relegation is concerned. And there are some leagues that get creative, Ligue 1 in France, La Liga Spain. They tend to run things the same as the English system. There are differences though. In the German Bundesliga, the Portuguese Primeira Liga, they have essentially the same difference. The bottom 2 teams from the higher tiers are relegated and they're replaced with 2 teams from the lower leagues. But the third worst team, unlike the Premier League, has a chance to save itself in a relegation playoff in a 2-game series against the third team in the Bundesliga. So they take the third best team in Bundesliga 2, the second tier, and they face them up against the third worst team. Have a shot at it, take your relegation playoff, the team that wins, you can save yourself or you can earn your promotion that way. Italy's Serie A, or Serie A, the bottom 2 teams are automatically relegated, and the third and fourth worst teams play a simple 1-game neutral site match to find out who's the team going up. So the top teams have a chance to save themselves, but there's already 3 teams looking to come up. The question is, who's going to be the third team? The bottom 2, you're already relegated. The third team, you have a chance. The last league I wanted to look at is the Netherlands, the Dutch top division, and that one handles things quite differently than the rest. While you have the 2 teams in the top tier that are automatically relegated, you have the third worst team that gets a chance to save itself through a playoff team that involves six teams from the lower division, from the second tier. So 1 and 2 in the lower division move up, bottom 2 teams move down. The third worst team from the top division ends up entering into a playoff series where it gets a bye. The top division team gets a bye to the semifinals, and they play the winner of the 5th seed versus 6th seed match. Then the 3rd and the 8th play each other. The 4th and the 7th play each other. Those 2 meet in their semifinal, and you end up with a winner, and that team, it moves into, or stays if it happens to be the top division team that's playing in the playoffs, they move in to compete in the top division in the Dutch league. I think that's a little bit too involved, but personally, I like the idea of the playoffs to earn your spot. I'd also, though, I'd welcome, and I haven't found a league that does this, I'd welcome a heartbreak game in combination with that promotion game. In fact, why not run them on the same day in the same stadium? Have the 3rd and 4th worst teams end up playing, find out who's being relegated, and then bring in the 3rd and 4th best teams from the lower tier and have them play against each other to earn the team's spot that they just saw lose out hours ago in the same stadium. I think the drama of not just the championship but also the heartbreak game would bring a little bit more. Could be done on the same day. I don't know, maybe policing's the issue, but I like that. So now, just to look at the North American comparisons, I mean, you can take a team like the Sugarland Space Cowboys, which is a brilliant name for a baseball team. That's the minor league affiliate, the AAA affiliate for the Houston Astros that play in Texas. Assume that those players include players on loan, some from different major leagues, some that are independently signed. We've got to change it up because obviously minor league baseball doesn't work that way. Essentially, think of AAA baseball as sort of the Premier League too. These are teams that have been drafted, signed, and they are part of the parent organization. But let's ignore that and say that you've got them in the 3rd division. That would be the comparison to trying to move teams up and down in baseball. In hockey, you run into the same thing. You've got the NHL, you've got the AHL, you've got the ECHL, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And consider the opportunity for the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, again, another great name for a team out of the ECHL, getting the opportunity to have not the affiliated players, but independent players moving up and down potentially through the ranks rather than having their affiliation with the Los Angeles Kings. Baseball has their structure, AAA, AA, A, and there's different divisions in there. There's rookie ball, there's high A, there's low A, there's short season A. There's different leagues that they compete in. The NBA has the G League, as its development program, which is really, really close to the Premier League too, because those teams are all owned by the NBA teams. I just don't see how promotion and relegation can work in North America. And I'm going to say that for 3 reasons. One, the franchise system and the valuation of it. The owners will never agree. And when you go to like Forbes magazine as an example, who'd look at the world's 50th most valuable sports teams, it's dominated by teams in the US market. The highest football team and also the non-US based team is Real Madrid, that's at 13th. The highest UK team on the Forbes most recent top 50 of valuable teams is Manchester United at 19th. There's some other football teams there. You've got Liverpool at 22nd, Man City at 24, Chelsea at 50th. But all of the big 4 North American leagues are represented except for hockey. Hockey, the New York Rangers are the most valuable. National Hockey League Club, valued at about $1 billion, which is just behind Chelsea at 50th. You're not going to see owners who have purchased into and bought into a closed system rather than promotion relegation consider or jeopardize their investment, in the sense that they could lose revenue by playing in a lower league for a period of time. So just financial reasons prohibit promotion relegation. I don't think the youth development model will allow it, and I'm going to get into the academy stuff and look at this much more in detail now that I want to figure out what that means, but ultimately the system does not permit promotion and relegation. Youth development in North America is done exclusively by the NSOs. You have, I'll take hockey as an example in Canada, you have kids who play for provincial organizations through down to their club. They end up moving up. If they're talented enough, they'll join leagues like the CHL, whether that be the Western League, the Quebec League, the Ontario League. They could end up playing Junior A, which is the route that players look at if they want to get NCAA scholarships and then potentially end up turning pro. Those kids are going to get scouted, but they don't touch professional club status or any relationship with a professional organization until they're drafted, or they become a free agent and they sign. The same occurs with all of the other sports. For football, it goes through the NCAA. And when I say football, gridiron football goes through the university organization. The players play there. They get drafted if they're good enough. Their rights are owned. There's no relationship and growth of the youth programming through the NFL other than potentially some camps. Same with baseball. You play Little League, you play club, you play high school, you go on to university, you get drafted, and you move up then through the professional ranks. Very different than the academy system that exists in the United Kingdom, which when I heard about, I was shocked. Schoolboy contracts, mind-blowing. Contracts to 8-year-olds, mind-blowing. I don't quite understand all of the nuances. That's something I'm going to look at. But once you belong to a club, you train and play with that club. You're barred from playing for other grassroots or against grassroots teams. And that's your calling until the team decides they no longer want you. And then there's a release process, the possibility of compensation for the team that trained you if you're going to move on to a different club. It's almost the professionalization of kids. And I have some criticisms, but I'm going to do some research and dive into the empirical evidence before I start to go through it. For our purposes today, what it means is I can't see how you can get promotion and relegation given the fact that there's no professional teams to be filled with young talent, fading talent in their leaner years, that can fill those independent teams to move up and down in a promotion system. The other complicating factor is that the reality is most minor league teams are owned by the top tier teams. In basketball, as I stated, all G League teams are owned by the NBA teams. In hockey, there are 11 of 32 teams that are independently owned. In the NFL, there's no development leagues because it's college football. There's some attempted competition from different leagues, but they're really separate and sort of set apart. And then in baseball, You've got a number of teams that are owned by their minor league affiliates, and I just can't see a situation where the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, being the New York Yankees affiliate, end up being promoted to replace or to compete against the New York Yankees. That's just, it's the Yankees players playing against the Yankees players. Conversely, I don't think that you'll ever see a circumstance where the UK gets away from promotion and relegation. First off, very different system in the sense that the Premier League has competition. You've got the Bundesliga, you've got Serie A, you've got La Ligue. Saudi Arabia now, who's stepped in and is snapping up players and paying gobs of money to have them over there. That doesn't exist. If you're going to play Gridiron football, you're playing in the NFL. If you're going to play basketball, yeah, there's leagues in France and Greece that you can get into, Serbia, but the NBA is where you go to make your revenue. The NHL, they have minor competition with the KHL in Russia, but really the NHL is where you go to earn your hay. It's not the same in the Premier League, and so I think that the sports governance dynamics are not going to change to allow a step away from promotion relegation. Plus, people prefer the drama. That dynamic of league competition worldwide also will lead to another video and another conversation with respect to the economics and the potential of a salary cap. A question was posed on Twitter that I thought was fascinating is, are there any leagues that have a salary cap in combination with promotion relegation? And I have only found one, and I've done some decent scouring. If I'm wrong, let me know. But the Chinese Super League is the only one that I have found that has promotion relegation with a salary cap. You can run a salary cap when you're the top dog and have no other competition. But can you imagine the consequences of running a salary cap in England, limiting your players' salary opportunities, recognizing that if nobody else in UEFA did it, or Saudi Arabia refused to do it, that you're going to end up with a draw on your league. And that leads me to sort of the final discussion point for the purposes of this video. And that is talking about the 2021 fan-led football governance report that came out from the government. And going back to that chart and looking at the Football Association, the FA, the Premier League, the EFL, and the National League, there was a survey that was done about fan perception of football authorities' performance. And there is criticism that has to go out to any sports organization, Sport Canada, Hockey Canada, Soccer Canada, all going through turbulent times, one with respect to money, one with respect to allegations of impropriety that have happened in that organization. Things are not perfect with any NSO, but I was shocked to find out how poorly football fans consider the organizations in England. The Football Association, 44% of those who responded said that they were doing a poor or very poor job. 37% said average. So all told, that's 77% of your fans say meh or worse for the FA, and things don't get better as you go down the list. The Premier League, 27% average, 56% doing poor or very poor. The EFL, 27% average, 49% poor and very poor. What fascinated me about that football fan-led governance report was that there had been some 62 administrations with the clubs that exist in England, the finger largely being pointed at salary cap. And so promotion and relegation in exclusion is a wonderful way to end up motivating competition, to ensure that every game matters. At the end of the day, you're filled with drama. You don't get that in the NHL. Instead, you get the opposite. You have teams losing on purpose and the forced imposition of a draft lottery to lower the likelihood that teams will lose on purpose in order to get the best young player in the draft that's coming up. There are problems with both systems, but economically and in exclusion, I suggest that the North American closed list model is a way to preserve the financial capacity of those teams within the organization. They're just in the business of promoting their hockey clubs. There's no necessity to gamble with wages beyond a club's capacity to satisfy. To take that gamble, I will say this, it's interesting, UEFA's got a battle going on. because you've got their president saying we're doing a salary cap, and then you've got economists coming out and saying that can't happen. That may be a conversation for another day. I think that the model set up is appropriate and a reasonable one, and that is 70%, but no capacity. 70% of revenue, turnover, should be wage salary. Players are going to scream that's not okay, but that's the only way to ensure the viability of the football teams going forward. And if the players end up earning less, that's a concern, but it's mitigated if UEFA does it across the board. Now, things may change with Saudi Arabia stepping in. We'll have a conversation about that. I might as well do an entire video on that. Next up, it's the big one for me. I'm probably going to do a couple little tiny videos, maybe another retro Wrexham. We've got the games happening in a week's time from now. As far as the tour goes, I would like to do some lives with that. I'm hoping that if you're liking this content, join me. I'm set up the platform to be able to invite people to A, do the videos, B, do some graphic stuff, C, write some articles. If you want to do that, reach out. I would love to be able to share the platform. That's why it was created, to have more people share their content about Wrexham. So you're invited to do that. The next big one will be the Academy. That's a whole pile of regulations that I've got to go through, and I have gone through some of them. So that's what's up next. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Again, follow us on the socials, The Red Horde. Hit the subscribe button down below if you've enjoyed this. Hell, hit the subscribe button even if you didn't enjoy it, because that'd be nice. But do what you need to do. I'm excited for the football season to be here. I'm hoping that people will join for the watch parties and the lives. My name is Sean Driver, and this was The Red Horde.